They should have said the poet. The poet. They should have said the poet. The poet.
This is Sending Poets, a podcast about ideas. Our goal is to understand metaphorical truths within the beauty we find in the human experience. Sending Poets.
When you're far away, I dream of the horizon and I'm out of words. That's what I would call happenstance haiku. It's from the English translation of the song Conte Partiro by Andrea Bocelli. If you've ever been to Las Vegas and sat in front of the Bellagio with the fountains, it's probably the iconic Bellagio fountain song. But yes, in the English translation, that those lines ended up being a haiku. Yay! My name is John. With me is Bob and Tucker. Good morning, you guys.
Hey, good morning.
We're going to keep talking about sleep. And last time we left off, we kind of had some homework to dive into the song Take Me Back to Eden by Sleep Token. So I thought we'd just start right there, just jump right in. And I'll do like sort of a pseudo dramatic reading of the lyrics because I'm no singer. Although if you guys are lucky, maybe I'll do some mouth riffing. I don't know. We'll see how I feel. But there's some good riffs in that song too. And full disclosure, Tucker and I, we both kind of have said over the years, like we're more music kind of inclined, I suppose, than lyric inclined. Whereas Bob, I think you've got us. You were just talking about this, but like you have these moments where like the lyrics just like the meaning comes through. And so this is going to be real fun. I think this is going to be real fun to like go through this song because it does tie into the idea of sleep and dreams and everything. So the song starts, I dream in phosphorescence, bleed through spaces, see you drifting past the fog, but no one told you where to go. And so for me, I was kind of thinking like, oh, the dream in phosphorescence, this is talking about like dream state consciousness maybe, and then recognizing another and like an other, somebody separate from, the narrator, I guess, seeing an other in that space. And maybe the other is sort of lost in the dream state. I would say that maybe is like a very thin, like right on the surface, maybe interpretation of those lyrics. Whereas Bob, I think you had another kind of maybe more deep take if you'd indulge us a bit here.
Yeah. This is, and might I start with just saying that the way that the sonic way that it's presented, the start of the song has some kind of animal sounds in the background. There's like some maybe tweeting, little growling, there's something primal in my interpretation of just the way this thing starts, very ethereal. And so I think it's setting the stage, talking about dreaming in phosphorescence of beginning of life in general, meaning microorganisms in the ocean. I'm sure we're all familiar with that beautiful blue glow, when a ship goes through the ocean and the propellers churn up the little microorganisms and they let off this phosphorescent blue glow. It's magical, and so I interpret this as an awakening where we're aware of dreaming, in that life has begun. And where does life start? Is in the ocean. So it begins where you have free movement. We're bleeding through the spaces, fog, all these ethereal and wet kind of concepts of individuality through being a microorganism in a giant collective. I mean, that's kind of very roughly where I would paint that.
Nice. And then Tucker, I think you maybe added something in there too. Is that you?
No, I didn't on that one, but
Okay.
yeah, I don't know. I kind of like the see you drifting past the fog, but no one told you where to go, and to me that almost kind of relates to what we were talking about with the like running in a dream. You can't actually run because you don't know where to go. Like it's not telling you a story. It's just kind of leading you through a scenario. Like it doesn't have the end plan, so you don't know where to go.
Nice. Yeah, I didn't actually think about that either. Yeah. Yeah, and much like the LGBT episodes, we're kind of curious about questions, but maybe not as interested in finding an objective answer, right? And certainly that's true with like lyrical interpretation and art interpretation, even just art at a basic level, right? So, yeah, so this is really cool, just kind of hearing um, all these like subjective kind of thoughts about these lyrics,
And by the
which
way,
can.
anybody who wants to really get into a fuzzy interpretation, go back to Conti Parti Row. That one, I don't think we're going to dig in too deep this time. I love the haiku, by the way, but the singer, the famous singer of that, is blind, and in the first verse, a lot of the discussion is about light and light filling up a room, and eventually it goes to loss, but I think there's something quite beautiful there about just the state of the singer being blind. I don't know if you guys are aware of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's pretty fascinating too.
So interpreting it through the fact that here's a blind guy singing this beautiful beautiful song, and sad. Obviously, it's almost like a song of loss, but having it be revolving around visualization and loss of light and all these things. Anyway, I apologize. Didn't mean to derail. I just thought
No, it's all good.
we deserve to shine a little bit of light on that first.
I get what you did there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So like the next lines here in the song, we dive through crystal waters, perfect oceans, but no one told me not to breathe, and now the weightlessness recedes. So for me, I was thinking, oh, like this is still in the dream state. The weightlessness recedes, maybe like waking up out of the dream state. And like if someone told them not to breathe, maybe they would have stayed in the dream state, like lucid dreaming. And this actually ties in with the lucid dreaming episode of Inner Cosmos. One of the tricks to practice the skill of lucid dreaming that they share is to get in the habit of plugging your nose and trying to exhale in waking life, so that you kind of are in the habit of doing that from time to time periodically, and so that when you do it in a dream and you close your nostrils, you can find like it's like in the Matrix. You think that's air you're breathing, like the experience would be different. Presumably, I don't have my own experience. I haven't tried this, but that's what I gather. And so I thought that was kind of interesting that nobody told him not to breathe. Oh, maybe this was some kind of like lucid dream or something. I thought that was kind of interesting. And then conversely, but again, the ocean in there, I didn't actually think like literal ocean. Whereas Bob, I think this kind of feeds into your thoughts about the evolution stuff.
So coming up out of the ocean, so all life starts, let's just assume, in the ocean, and it starts as single cells, and eventually multicellular life, eventually a fish, some sort. And then at some point, the fish, there's no animals on land. Imagine being the first fish, right? There's nobody up there, and
Yeah.
nobody's telling you don't do this thing. You're kind of breaking territory. You're off the map, and when you recede out of the water, you would lose your weightlessness.
Yeah.
And
That tracks.
yeah, I like that. Because I mean, think about how revolutionary that was, which was, it almost makes me wonder if it was a conscious choice, or did a certain species of fish live in an area that they got washed up on shore a lot, and so eventually developed some evolutionary trait that allowed them to breathe when they get thrown out of the ocean.
Yeah, interesting. Like it just ended up being sort of a happenstance, just chance, because of the way the moon was like affecting the tides and stuff, or just something
Yeah.
kind of arbitrary, right?
Well, like you
Yeah.
think of, I know, there's, mud skippers or something like that. I mean, some fish kind of evolved to have that transitionary, almost like an amphibian, where they obviously can have gills and breathe in the water, but as long as they're wet or whatever, they can start to venture up. They don't have to be in water per se constantly. I think that's what happens. I mean, there's some kind of million or many million year arc of small mutations that allow the concept of breathing. I think that's fascinating. And obviously there's huge opportunity to go from, if everything is competing in the oceans, like every little piece of life, non-plant life, let's just say, is competing in the oceans, what would it be like to be the first one up on the beach? Like, it'd be heaven. You'd be able to do anything. There's no predators, infinite amount of new food and shelter and space. And I mean, it would just thrive, but it takes that first organism to realize no one told you not to breathe, and you could come up here onto land and you could do all these things. So that's kind of the story arc that I see.
Well, and evolution's a trip in itself, because the ancestors of whales and dolphins were land animals.
That's awesome.
And at some point they were like, nope, this sucks, back in the water.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I mean, when you look at a whale skeleton, like at their flippers, they are very similar to the structure of our hands and feet.
Totally.
Mm,
That's a great
yeah.
point. That's a great point.
Because they used to be hands and feet.
Yeah.
Let's go one more. Let's go to bats.
Before we go to bats, with the way you describe it, was like, oh yeah, I knew that from the movie Tusk. Anyway, but now bats.
Deep reference there.
And for anybody who has not seen that movie, do yourself a favor. It'll change your life in some way.
Right. Yeah, in some way.
You will not be the same.
But don't put it on in front of the kids, please.
No.
Just be aware, this is not a not a kid's movie.
Yeah, watch it yourself first and then decide, I guess.
You could see like a Disney. Yeah, I mean, choose for yourself, obviously, but you could see it as going. The name is very broad, Tusk. But anyway, the point is,
you think Kevin Smith? This is definitely more Human Centipede than it is Clerks.
Yes,
right.
Yes, very good.
But
very
I would say, like, it's a more, I think it's kind of a cautionary tale, and it is kind of messed up and sad. But if you've seen Red State, that's like way more fucked up, I would say, just in general, than Tusk, as far as Kevin Smith movies go. Red State, oof, oh my god, that's just like nightmare shit.
I don't think I've seen that one.
I haven't seen that either. No.
Yeah, but yeah,
but
so
I
Tusk,
do think it's.
Tusk is I would say is like almost cheerful. There's jokes in Tusk. I don't remember many. I don't remember laughing during Red State much. It's just like a terrifying nightmare. But
Tusk is
anyway.
over the top, like Human Centipede, over the top.
Yeah.
I mean, it's to the point of absurdity, and I think that's the art form that they're going for.
Yeah,
like a
for
Kill
sure.
Bill style of like a pulpy, over the top, hyper. I want to say violent. Violent is probably not even the right word, but disturbing, hyper disturbing. But anyway, real quick, back to the point Tucker made about sea mammals. I think that's a fascinating continuation of this process. Meaning, if we have the first process of single cell, literally creatures that emit light through phosphorescence, and then multicellular, and then true fish, and then get up on land, and then go back to the sea or go into the air. I mean, it's quite a fascinating exploration of our environment, and I think that's what we're talking about. Is this because what we're going to talk about is the point of back to Eden is to go back. So you kind of have to know where you're at to go back, right? And so the point is how much things have changed in these pathways of life going into the environments and all the different environments that we find on this planet. I think it's fascinating to think about how far we've gone as life in general to exploit all the niches in our environment.
Yeah, agreed.
And then finally, this will come up next or soon, creating our own, meaning like there's only a few creatures that kind of create their own environment, like bees and beavers, and I'm trying to think, other than bees and beavers, I don't know, like maybe some birds that make nests or something, but
squirrels, right?
Termites or something. But like humans, we're now going to this next level. I mean, we have space stations where we have astronauts living up in orbit. We have underwater vehicles where we can bring our atmosphere down with us. I mean, we have next level where we're not evolved to go into these places, but we're using technology to give us the ability to progress in a whole new way. And I think that's what the point of the song is.
Nice. Were you going to say something about bats too?
Well, just that bats, if you look at their wings, it's like a hand, with membrane stretched in between the fingers, and it's, they're mammals, and I mean, they're very, very interesting creatures as far as their sensory apparatus. I mean, we don't have to go into it; it's totally off topic. But the point is, like, think of a sperm whale or something. These things dive down to insane depths. They eat giant squid, but they used to walk around on the land. Kind of, you scratch your head, just to think of like a sperm whale is just one of those things, or any whale, but I'm just picking sperm whale. But anyway, dolphins, like just this orca, like these creatures are so amazing. And then to Tucker's point, to think that they've abandoned the land to go back to where they originally came from, millions or billions of years prior. I think that's fascinating.
Totally. Yeah.
And I've never seen one super close up, but we went down to Cabo in 2019 February, like right before the world turned upside down, and like the hotel's right on the coast, and down in Cabo, like it just drops off, like 100 feet off land, it just drops to insane depths. So right off the coast, there's just humpback whales just breaching all day at that time of year. We didn't plan it, just lucked out. And like the juvenile ones will just breach as they swim all the way down the coast. Like it's just a game to them. They're just having fun. And you can see the moms kind of following them. You can see their backs arch out through the water. But the juvenile ones are just jumping out of the water every chance they get.
Wow,
it's crazy cool. I'd love to see them a little more up close. It's definitely on the bucket list.
And just before we divert off the marine mammals, just a call back to a couple podcasts ago. I can't remember when exactly, but the concept of menopause.
Oh yeah.
Isolated to just humans and a couple marine mammal species, quite frankly, which is quite fascinating. It's like the family dynamic of pods of orca or sperm whale or some other porpoises, they have a very strong level of communication and culture and history. And so the concept of having a competitive family where you're competing with your grandmother who's no longer reproductive, but she's competing for resources, if you will, against her daughters and granddaughters. It's hard to square that, evolutionarily speaking, unless you can understand of all the additional benefits brought in through an informational layer. Way off topic. I apologize, guys, but I had to marvel at this concept of animals evolving to not just survive, but be integral to the survival of their descendants past the point of just making babies. I think it's like a next level understanding of how powerful the informational layer in culture is to adaptation and fitness.
Yeah.
Well, and just thinking about this whole topic made me have the thought that I'm going, I don't really think humans invented a global economy. I think marine mammals have been doing that for eons. And that's where I think it's important that they do in their own way value these older members of their pods, is because these aren't animals that just like live off the coast of California. No, they literally travel the world. They're always moving. They're always, they were the first world travelers long before we nailed some boards together and made a crude sail. They had already done it.
That's beautiful. I love
Yeah,
that.
hadn't
Great
thought
point.
of it that way. Yeah, that's really cool.
But I think that's a really cool correlation. But I think there's something there, not just random. I think there is something absolutely there to your point of distance traveled, and meaning the map you would have to have. Like the map becomes important.
Right.
Exactly.
Fucking A.
And just that type of communication, it's sound. I mean, yeah, in a way, like language is sound too, but we kind of think of language as being this refined thing because we have all these words and stuff. But whales still communicate. Maybe they don't have what we would call language, but it's their own language, right? But it sounds right.
I
That
pump the
just
brakes. Pump the brakes. I'm sorry, I got to do this. Pump the brakes. I literally just heard a podcast maybe a week or two ago. It was called On the Media. It's a broadcast from NPR, and the guy who was the guest was an expert in sperm whales, and he was able to decode. He says, I mean, I don't know if this is fully confirmed, that you can distinguish specific. I'm trying to remember what they're called. It's almost like analogous to letters in an alphabet or words. Like there were specific clicks, and he even had a little rock, and he would like simulate the click codes. Can't remember what he called them. There was some name for it, but he had done enough research that he proposed or hypothesized that not only did they have quote unquote words for certain things and names for individuals, but they had a word for their own clan. So like as Tucker's talking about, they're moving around. If one group of sperm whale were to interact another non-family pod or whatever of sperm whale from a different region, they would have a unique word or series of clicks for themselves, like an introduction. It's fascinating. I hope someone
Wow.
listening
They're
will look this up.
It's called codas.
It is called codas. Thank you, Tucker.
Yeah.
So they to the point of how advanced the communication levels are, and I know lots of animals communicate, but I mean the concept of, and they even brought this up in the podcast, humpback whale song. Like the concept in movies like Star Trek, where the humpback whales, right? I don't know if you remember this movie.
Oh, yeah.
Humpback whales are like the alien things, and I mean their language is so they talked about it. It was like National Geographic's #1 album of all time is Whale Song, Humpback Whales or something like that. But the point is the complexity and utility of communicating on a global scale through these sounds is profound, and it's I won't say it's above or below humans, but it's like right next to us. It's
Yeah.
alongside of us.
And I believe I've even read, and I don't know that it's among all whale species or marine mammals, but like they've even gotten to the point where they can determine that like certain pods have their own like regional dialect and almost like
Wow.
accent that is
Totally.
Yeah.
different from other pods. And it's like, yeah, they're totally, it's totally a separate society of intelligent creatures on Earth.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think there's any denying that.
I mean, they have the largest brains of any creature ever to live
Yeah, by a lot.
by a lot. They're fascinating. I think there's a lot to explore there in the similarities and how their structure, meaning how they adapted to this environment, is very analogous to humans with our ability to walk. I always go back to the walking, where we humans, our ancestors, really the locomotion is my point. The locomotion drives our adaptation, and our adaptation of consciousness is a function of predictive modeling based on the fact that we move around. Or if you look at chimps, or gorillas, like there may be insane similarities to humans, but they kind of just sit around. No offense to chimps and gorillas listening in the future, but they just sit around. And so even though we're so closely related, this function of locomotion, back to whales that circumnavigate the globe, it induces this level of communication and history and culture because of their locomotion of breaking new territory and needing to build new maps constantly, and then passing those maps down to the generations. I think that's essentially, in a nutshell, what I'm talking about.
Wow. Watch how I tie this back to the song. So it made me think the whale thing and the communication. There's the show, it was on Apple TV Plus earlier this year, I think, called Extrapolations, and there was a couple episodes where they had sort of codified whale language so they could speak to whales. It's takes place in the future and stuff. So that was cool, and it reminded me of the piece that I think we'll get into a little bit more. So I'll just kind of briefly, but in the interview with the lucid dream researcher guy in the Inner Cosmos podcast, they were talking about scanning the brain to really kind of build an LLM, like a model of a way a subject's brain worked when presented with pictures of this and that and these things and those things, and really just kind of have a map, right, of the brain's inner workings, so that when the person was dreaming, they could, just like ChatGPT, like they could kind of plug this model in and kind of predict what they were dreaming about. And I don't think it's like the science isn't so far that it's like a marketable thing. Maybe that'll happen, maybe it won't, but it was really fascinating to me that research is happening, and it makes a lot of sense that could be a way to understand dreams more. I love the idea one day that we could plug something into our head when we're dreaming and like DVR it so we could watch it when we wake up. That sounds really cool to me.
I would like to watch not only mine but other people's too. I think that'd be
exactly right. Yeah. What a way to communicate with people. Like, here's what my dream was like last night.
Kind of reminds me of like a Black Mirror episode somehow. I can't recall, but there's something there about the ability to read and record and play back. Either, I can't remember if it's dreams or
it was they had contacts. They had like special contacts, I think, that just basically DVR'd everything.
Yeah, so they could overanalyze every single interaction around you.
But I remember it was like in the guise of like a social thing, like we're going to have a cocktail party and then we're going to play back Tucker's famous time when he did this, or whatever.
Right.
so it made TV like, nobody watches TV. We just watch each other's,
Experiences.
experiences. Yeah.
Well,
Right.
and that could totally, the whole dream recording could totally be a whole Black Mirror episode in itself, because there's a myriad of ways I could see that being exploited for nefarious purposes, whether by the government or just, bullying or blackmail,
Well, here's
Yeah.
how I thought about it in a nefarious Black Mirror style. The episode would be, we're watching a dream, like we're all watching the dream or whatever. But then, it's like an Inception style. Then you wake up, meaning you wake up from thinking you were the one watching the dream, meaning there's like a conscious, when you play these things back, you'd create like a little temporary consciousness in the playback where it thinks it's alive. It thinks, I'm trying to, it's a complicated thing, but like, if you keep on going down in layers, like if you had a dream, but then you have a dream within a dream, then that second layer would kind of think it's alive or conscious, but that could just be a recording of a dream where, you're kind of like creating and destroying conscious life all the time. Every time you play back an episode, you would be like creating a little dreamer inside the episode that's technically conscious and alive, I guess. I don't know.
Whoa.
Sorry.
Yeah.
well,
No,
it could also come into play that, like, what is legal to do in your dreams?
Good point.
Oh yeah.
Because anything goes in a real dream. But
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you're not driving. You are not the moral authority of your dreams, I guess.
you might not even be in control.
Exactly.
Like, what's culpability
Yeah.
of, legally? Like, I didn't even try to dream that, officer. I swear.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing right now. I mean, dreams are completely individual. There is no such thing as like sharing dreams yet. But yeah, that if that technology becomes a reality one day, yeah, I can appreciate the complexity increases
Yeah.
a thousandfold. You know what I mean?
There's a very good example, and I'm not saying I had this dream because I didn't, but with current events, there was just an assassination attempt on a presidential candidate, and it's been everywhere in the media. So what happens if you have a dream that you assassinate a
Mhm.
political figure? Are you going to get a visit from the Secret Service the next morning?
Well, that,
Right.
that brings up also Minority Report.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think everything has a dystopian side eventually, if you play it out to some logical conclusion that's, arbitrarily realistic or some level of realism. But I don't know. I mean, once we get into the dream realm, and that's why I love this topic. It's such a ubiquitous experience for all humans. And quite frankly, I think almost all mammals. I don't know if lizards and snakes dream or fish dream, but like I've seen my dogs dream,
Oh, sure.
I've seen my,
Right.
see my
Yeah.
little dogs like woofing and like their little paws get going. They're laying on their side completely.
Yeah.
Out, and they're just running around and, and then I've heard some growls, like
Right.
something's happening. Fascinating, by the way.
Same.
Fascinating
Yeah.
to watch your dog dream in a very deep, very serious dream for them. It makes me wonder, honestly, about how, and we can get into this a little bit later maybe, but, how powerful the hallucination is in the dream, that it does trick you without fail into believing all these weird things, like you shot the presidential candidate. Like you would never, like maybe like what was from the episode, the gentleman David Eagleman was talking about upsetting his brother's wedding or something like that, or being mean to his brother's new wife or something. Like he said, I would never do that. I love her. And, but isn't that weird? Like you believe it. You would believe that thing in that moment because why? I don't have an answer. Why? Why is it so believable in a dream? I don't know. Like, why does a dog think it's actually going to get the squirrel in the dream? I don't know.
Right. I know. I do want to get into that. Yeah, there was the guy he's interviewing has like something really, really cool to say about that. But let's go back. I kind of forgot how I was going to tie that in, but let's go back into the song.
Sorry, John. We're trying to derail you as hard as possible.
Yeah, you're doing a really good job.
Yeah.
No, it is. It's good practice. It's like, yeah, because like I do want to try to like find fun ways. Like, hey,
Segues
speaking
back.
of that, yeah, right.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like I give up. Hey, we're just gonna go back into that. You know what I mean? Like I don't know what the segue is, but okay, yeah. So this next section, it's sort of like a pre-chorus. By the way, I will say it's some of the most beautiful like poetry in the song, I think. And it goes like this. So, uh, my, those eyes like fire. I'm a winged insect. You're a funeral pyre. Come now, bite through these wires. I'm a waking hell, and the gods grow tired. Reset my patient violence along both lines of a pathway higher. Grow back your sharpest teeth. You know my desire. Again, just stand alone. Fucking that's like beautiful poetry. Like
It
it
is.
doesn't even need like music. It's just, but
The
yeah,
sonic
it's
power too. The band as a
yeah,
whole is
right.
crushing it right there.
Well, it's really building it up, I guess. So it's like a pre-chorus. I think you do it like 3 times, and the first time it really is building up to where the riff comes in. Again, if we're lucky, I'll do some mouth riffing in the next part here, but but yeah, then the second and third time, it really is like beautifully crafted music too, the way it comes back into it. So, but meaning wise, I really it spoke to me as like the moth drawn to a flame thing, this like uncontrollable pull towards something. So I was thinking, oh, maybe it's like a pull towards sleep or dreaming, maybe I don't know, but then the part that really spoke to me was this idea about reset my patient violence along both lines of a pathway higher. And it ties back to what we talked about, a few episodes ago. This, well, Bob, you've been using the word awakening, like a lot lately. And I think for me, it was sort of an awakening where I started just kind of recognizing I had this thinking pattern where I really wanted things to be associated in a binary fashion. It's either this or this, or, this or that, black or white. And I think I mentioned at least once in those episodes, this woman, Irshad Manji, who started this moral courage thing, which is really where I got the idea, or got the lesson, or whatever, the thing to try with my neighbor when he came and said, "Hey, I got this petition that sounded like not at all what I was into, but that whole thing comes from this moral courage that she's preaching, and it's about setting aside the instinctual reaction for a moment to really try to appreciate the opportunity to learn something, by listening. And to me, like, both, along both lines, reset my patient violence along both lines, like it's very personal to me, was like this binary kind of thinking of a pathway higher, was like that idea about setting that aside and like listening to learn, not to win, asking questions, and then maybe like grow back your sharpest teeth is maybe this plea to the other to do the same thing. So aside from just the flow of the words, the rhyming, really deep meaning, personal at a personal level for me with this thing. And again, the beauty of it, I think, Bob, yours was quite different.
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of interpretation and poetry in general, and why we're doing this pod is to see the beauty in everybody's interpretation, and how art is inherently interpretable, and that is the glory of the thing. Meaning, you can define something, in length, height, weight, color spectrum, temperature. I mean, the exact literal interpretation of a thing can only be one way. And maybe it's a little bit closer to the reality of the temperature. Maybe I say 98 and you say 99 and it's 98.6. Okay, so we can get a little bit closer. But that doesn't really add anything more to it, whereas the interpretations are always additive.
Mm-hmm.
Looking through a metaphor is not just seeing a thing clearly, it's a reflection of you. And that is the beauty, right? Is you're finding your own reflection in the metaphor, and how you interpret it, I think, adds to the meaning of it for other people. So anyway, We all know art is beautiful, and this is inherent in the human condition. But back on topic, I really liked the chorus. I mean, obviously, musically, it's powerful. I get a feeling. It's evocative. It goes back to this primal sense. So to me, the idea of the eyes being like fire definitely calls to an experience I think many people have had. If you were to shine light into the darkness, or if you ever watched a movie or documentary of light being shined into the darkness and you see the eyes shine back, there's a part of certain animals' eyes, usually predatory nocturnal animals, so that they can have enhanced night vision.
Night vision.
Yeah, essentially, tapetum lucidum is an extra layer that bounces the light around so that they have more opportunity for the retina to take up signal. But to us, it looks like some glowing, like it doesn't look real. It almost calls back to the phosphorescence. There's this moment of, it's like it's generating light. It's like it's projecting. It's reflecting, obviously, but it seems like it's generating its own light when you're looking at it. And to be drawn to that would be drawn to like a funeral pyre. So death. I mean, the creatures that have this often are predators. I don't think that's exclusive, but so it rings true to me that in this chorus, they are talking about a primal stage, a nocturnal stage, where if you get called like a moth to a flame, we know that moths are attracted to a flame to their death. When the flame is a light bulb over your outdoor window or something, and they can't get away from this thing. It's kind of like this weird counterintuitive effect of their instinct, in that, let's just say, moths or insects are guided by, the nocturnal ones are guided by moonlight. It's like a reference point, just like, bees use the sun as a reference point in their navigation. So you can't really avoid it, meaning it's an intractable impact upon you. Where you think you're going, you end up being drawn to this flame that is to the insect a funeral pyre. So I think that's powerful. I think that talking about biting through the wires is a concept of breaking the connection with the light that attracts us now. So we're in a tension here between our evolved state, our primitive state, the state of feeling like an animal, versus being a hyper-conscious creature that doesn't even see itself as an animal. Animals are other or lower than us. We are human, capital H. We're not even, we go to heaven or hell. We have souls, we have morals and laws, and all these things that we wrap ourselves up in is a function of technology. I think that's what the song is going to get to, is the concept of technology being a proxy for not being an animal anymore. So biting through those wires would turn the lights off, right? If you have a lamp on and you're drawn to this lamp and it's your funeral pyre, you could bite through those wires. That's an option. The ability to have patient violence. So as an animal, one of the things you would do is have the potential to attack. Or let's just say, like a snake coiled up, I think is probably a great visual. Think of like the "don't tread on me," concept.
Yeah.
So you have this thing and it's patient. I mean, it just sits there. If you don't come to it and mess with it, it's not going to come mess with you. But it's there. It's always there. And humans as animals have this patient violence. And then along both lines of a pathway higher, I see that as how all animals, humans included, grow or improve. And so a pathway higher, to learn to get farther down the pathway or above where your current situation is, you can learn one of two ways. And that is through pleasure or pain, meaning we seek to avoid or learn that this thing hurts, so go away from it. And we learn that this thing is a good feeling, pleasurable. Let's go towards it. And so
Yeah.
those are the two lines that I see to a pathway higher. And then the last line talking about grow back your sharpest teeth, my desire, is calling back to biting through the lines, get your primal teeth back, be able to disconnect from the funeral pyre of modern technology that draws us like a moth to a flame.
I love it.
I think it also kind of speaks to and I forget who said this, or if I'm even going to get the quote 100% correct, but it's kind of like you can't call yourself a peaceful man unless you are capable of extreme violence. If you're not capable of extreme violence, then you're just a pacifist. And it's in all of us. You take away the cushy facade of modern human society, we'd all become animals again pretty quickly. Because that's what we are. Now we're an extremely complex and intelligent and complicated animal, but that's what we are. We can delude ourselves into believing we are above the rest because of our technology, but that's the only thing that's separating us.
I can speak to that on a personal level. There was 2 or 3 years ago, you might remember this, Tucker. Like I was on this kick where I was like just so like jazzed up or whatever that like humans are the only species that created a global like communication network. And maybe to the point where I was like, so clearly like that sets us like above, I guess. Maybe I was thinking of it in that, sense, like being above. And both of you guys have said things that I think have like helped me kind of ease off of that. Is that big dick energy? I don't know, but you know what I mean. Like where I just like, it's awesome. It's true. Like
Heavy to
I
the ego, right? That's super ego.
yeah, but just appreciating like, okay, but just because of that one thing, does that really make us like this superior species? Like, isn't it more interesting to know how other species communicate? And we were just talking about whales like going all over the planet, and they have a sophisticated form of communication. So they don't have a device they can whip out and use thumb gestures to like do stuff, but they don't have thumbs.
I would go
So
I would go deeper than the level of communication, by the way. I'd go deeper and say our superiority stems from full bellies, layers of fat.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. You get a group of people who are used to eating every day of their life and multiple meals. Go 3 days without eating. See what kind of people you'll get. They're not going to be their patient violence will become impatient.
Yeah.
You'll get people who eat people quicker than you would think.
I would say 72 hours will begin the mayhem.
Mm-hmm.
In 72 hours, the fringes will realize where the game is going, and they'll try to beat everybody to the punch, and then you have to react to that, and on it goes.
Yeah. Well, back to maybe a more cheerful concept. This song goes, the next part, I would say this was like the actual chorus, and so it's, and again in this, the first time in the song is where this like heavy riff comes in, but it goes, I will travel far beyond the path of reason. Take me back to Eden. Take me back to Eden. Shun gun gun dun dun gun 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 dun dun gun gun dun. And that's the mouth riffing. You're welcome. And and it goes back into like take me back to Eden. And yes,
they drop it
fucking
hard.
nailed it.
They drop it hard right there. No, I like that. I can feel it. Now, if you've never listened to the song, it sounds like John's insane right now. No, you've got to listen to the song. You'll get
That
it.
that's exactly why I did it. For anyone who hadn't listened, like it can only be better than what I've just done. See, you're welcome. Anyway, so so the meaning here, though, for me, yeah, path of reason. I kind of think sometimes, like, well, yeah, the path of reason, that might be like the real world. So this Eden thing is, well, again, for me, I was kind of thinking of it in terms of like this dream state, maybe. But here, Bob, I don't know if feel free to go deep into this because I know you've had a lot. You have a lot of thoughts about the Holy Trinity piece here. But whatever you want to say about this, like,
Well, I can't recall now. I'm scratching my head. I can't recall if it was just in our conversations. We've discussed this at length, or it's been on the pod. I'll try to do a real quick overview. Um, as far as the metaphor of the Christian Trinity plus the devil. So just real quick, I'm just gonna get to the pertinent part. So if you have the metaphor, the Christian Trinity, which is the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, and then you have the devil or Lucifer or Satan or whatever you want to call it, the symbolism of that Trinity plus one to me is that Jesus is the Son as the subconscious, and the devil or fallen angel or Satan, whatever you want to call it, is as consciousness. And so in the Garden of Eden, before Adam and Eve eat of the tree of knowledge, which is pertinent here, back to reason. So the tree of knowledge is a form of consciousness. It's a form of forward deductive process. It is inherently this human aspect that is powerful, but that power lends itself to evil usages. Let's just say, not try to go too far onto that, but let's just say that to call back to Eden, because once the first two humans, Adam and Eve, eat of the tree of knowledge, they are expelled from the garden. So the song is, in my interpretation, a way to come back to the garden. So to let go of the tree of knowledge, the fruit of the tree of knowledge, the reason component, the rationality, the logic. Not that it's not there. We understand it's there, but I will travel far beyond the path of reason is a point of it's not the only thing. And so being caught up in technology, meaning the path of reason or logic or consciousness, can get us very, very far, get us to satellites, get us to internet, and all that comes with that, which is not a bad thing. But to travel far beyond the path of reason, meaning to me to understand that it's not the only thing. And we give up a lot if we go to social media and we go to large language models and we go to predictive algorithms and we go to everything else technologically, factory farming, we go to whatever, it doesn't matter, all the dystopian, recording one's dreams and sharing it with one another, whatever it could be. There is a cost to that. And in the guise of this song, I believe that the trajectory is to arc from our primitive, pre-technological days to our evolution to now we will become technologically advanced, and then to try to go past that path of reason where we're still reasonable creatures, not trying to abandon it in total, but to understand where we came from and how we evolved and how it feels to be an animal is like a third path, where we're past just trying to be Mr. Spock, if you will, and incorporating the totality of our experience into something that's both helpful and feels good.
I find it interesting that in many mythologies, Christianity included, Lucifer is, when you go back to its Latin origins, it's Lucifer the light bringer. And what was the Greek god Prometheus who gave humans fire?
right.
It's always that.
Stole it from the
That
gods.
first step. Once you have fire, you're no longer an animal because you're in control of a technology. And you know, what has technology given us? It has given us stability. It has given us interconnectedness. It has given us various forms of entertainment and educational tools, but it also gave us satellite guided bombs and nuclear weapons, and far beyond the path of reason. There's no reason we should be doing that.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
The power to
there's no
destroy
reason
ourselves.
there's no reason that we should spend vastly, vastly larger sums of money on killing people thousands of miles away from us than we do on taking care of our own people. It's insanity. We've lost that path of reason, and I think there is something more natural to go back to realizing that we are all just creatures of this planet. There is no other planet we will ever go to that will be more home than Earth because we evolved here. And we
Yeah.
should be doing a much better job at taking care of it and realizing we are, yes, the dominant species, but because of that, I think there's a responsibility there that we're not taking. You know?
Yeah. It makes me think, just a quick tangent here, it makes me think of that show Dark Matter I was telling you guys about. It has to do with like the multiverse, the concept of, parallel realities. And, but at some point they kind of realize they can sort of choose what reality to go into. And this one character, they go into this, and it seems like it's the future. The thing about this technology is it's only space. It's the time. There's no time difference, so you're still in the same time period when you go into these other worlds. But they go into this world, and it seems like it's the future. Everything is like very futuristic looking and stuff. And the guy's like, how did you bring us here? And she's like, I wanted to see a world that where technology wasn't harmful to humans or the environment or something specific like about that. And I brought this up because there's a scene where these people are like, hey, can you take our picture? And the camera, it's like a fancy Polaroid. And it was like this real stark contrast between like the way our technology is today and how it's evolved. And like, don't get me wrong, the cameras are awesome, but like it's it's a phone. We still call it a phone, but like it does way more than just like a phone thing. And I thought that was a really interesting artistic point to do, to show like in this other reality where technology is, you know, grown in a way that isn't harmful to humans and the environment and stuff. It's like the idea of taking a picture, really didn't grow past the Polaroid. I mean, it's the same kind of thing. It's just this picture, this device that you can click this button and out comes, the actual picture. I thought that was like really interesting. And I think it kind of speaks to what you were talking about, Tucker, about, well, look where we are. And maybe there are things that kind of went off in a specific direction because of maybe not the best reasons. Maybe, like maybe profit was like the most important thing in this one case, and if it wasn't, if like the environment, if impact to humans, if that was a bigger priority than profit, maybe things would have been shaped a little differently, right? Very interesting, very interesting
I like
concept
this.
to me.
I like this a lot, and to tie it back up again, to see progress through both what you said, John, profit, and then what Tucker was talking about, like militarization.
Mm-hmm.
Because I go back and obviously I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I would think if we took the global military budget of all the nations and we pooled it for food production,
Mm-hmm.
and we talked about like people change when you have an empty belly and you're starving, you're not going to act quote unquote human anymore. Well, that seems a pretty safe way to end the war. Let's just make more food for everybody.
The sad part is you wouldn't even need all of it. You would need 1%. You might probably
But
need
here's
1% to
but
fix
here's
Right.
what
the food
here's what I'm getting at.
problem.
I agree with that 100%. But here's what I'm getting at: the progress comes through the war,
Yeah, and that's a sad truth. Is
and the
that
progress comes through the greed. So profit means I'm going to make a better mousetrap. I'm going to find a new way to do a thing or create a thing that no one even knew about, and everybody's going to want it. And so let's just say for each billionaire, and I'm not saying this literally, but for a billionaire or somebody who has created a giant economic engine on the global scale, maybe 100,000 people a year get new products and services forever, something like that. And then that grows upon each layer over time. And so going back to this thing of like, there might be a trade-off here. We should be aware, we should be awake in that if we like it just nice and soft and easy, like nerfed, we want to nerf the world. Okay. Well, probably not going to watch a very good football game then, because everybody's going to take it real easy on each other. No one's going to get hurt. So I like this tension. I really like this concept of, it's because you can't pick one side.
no, you can't have it
Yeah.
both ways.
Yeah, you can't have it both ways. That's a better way to put it.
Well, I was
It's
gonna
like,
ask, like, what do you think about like just rephrasing how you said this? I'm curious if, because I think you said, the progress comes from war, the progress comes from greed. What if we said like we can see historical evidence that the progress has come from war, that the progress has come from greed, but do we think it has to come from war? Do we think it has to come from greed? Is that the only way?
I don't. I don't think it has to be that way. I think it just is that way, and it has been that way for much of human evolution. It's
Yeah,
who built the longer spear. That's who won the fight, and it's been that way as long as we were us.
yeah,
But I don't think we're the same as we were even a generation ago.
right.
That is the enigma of humans when you look at us against any other species on Earth. Is we are very much not like our ancestors in a lot of ways. In a lot of ways we are, and it appears that there are patterns that repeat themselves, and you know good times lead to hard times, which lead back to good times. And
Right.
but I think we have the potential to be a species that could learn from our mistakes,
I think so too.
and could go towards a better way. But I also think there are people who would fight against that.
Yeah, because it's not a thing that changes overnight.
No,
It's generations and generations kind of trying to like affect that change. You know.
I agree. I agree in principle. I'll say the level of intractable nature of the problem, I think, is behavior as a function of its consequences. And so if you can become hyper wealthy because you have an idea or you are able to create a system in place that allows you to be hyper wealthy, that's a hard behavior to not have someone enact if that's your consequence. And then
Mm.
if you have stuff and someone else wants your stuff, and they could come get your stuff if you're defenseless very easily. They just walk in and just no locks on anybody's house and no cops. Well, good luck accumulating a bunch of stuff if you don't want somebody to come take your stuff. I mean, so I think these behaviors adapt to the game theory of what's happening. So the good side of it is that's kind of the bad side in that it's never changed and it looks bleak. And I don't think it would ever change in the current system. But remember we talked about this idea of like gamifying science, meaning having experimentalist and theoretical sides of the game kind of take opposing sides and then make a market to bet on these things. Like my point
Oh
is
yeah.
like some kind of game theory that plays on our quote unquote weakness or strength that we're going to want to be either greedy or powerful somehow. Like we want to have the control, we want to have the status, we want to have prosperity for our people, etc. But we're competing with one another. I mean, you have to. Here's my point: when it gets to the let's just nerf it. Everything. Everybody gets food. Nobody has to work. Nobody will ever get hurt. Free healthcare for all. Blah blah blah. Whatever you want to call this thing. What eventually happens is it just locks in place. You would get stuck with the Polaroid camera forever. So it's like this trade-off between, well, it sounds good that nobody has to work, like universal basic income. Let's just go there. To me, it kind of reminds me of communism. The saying in communism was, we pretend to work, they pretend to pay us. Like where, so universal basic income sounds good, but what if prices just all go up? And like your universal basic income is fine, say, okay, apartments are $2,000 a month or whatever, and now everybody gets $2,000 a month and a food budget. Well, that's great, but what if the game changes? Now apartments are $5,000 a month, and your food budget went 3x. Like to think it's all just going to lock in place, I think is short-sighted. Like to think we can just solve this thing by creating a fake way out of the game, I just don't believe. I think we have to acknowledge the game, acknowledge the tension. This thing is real. There's competition here. Someone can come take your stuff. You got to get strong. If you're weak, someone's going to definitely come take your stuff. But maybe getting strong will motivate you to go take their stuff. Like it's like this endless game, like Tucker said, of good times and hard times and good times. I mean, it's endless.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, the only way out of the game is to use the game, meaning redirect the game to a way that we can all agree is not destructive or injurious to the environment or to the weakest of us, or whatever you want to call it. So I see a slim sliver of hope in not a full reset, not going back to true primitive nature, where it's not going to be better than either, by the way. It's just going to be less phone time. Yeah, less complicated. Thank you. Less phone time, less social media or whatever. But people are still going to bitch about, how many rocks you have versus how many rocks I have. And I'm going to want more rocks, and you've got some, so I'm going to go take your rocks. I'm going to use a spear. I mean, whatever. I mean, this thing is just never going to go away. I think it's inherent in the
nature.
Yeah.
Not just us. It's just inherent in nature.
Yeah, good point. Right.
It's inherent in the evolutionary process, right?
Yeah.
So survival of the fittest is not exactly the right way to call it. And I don't know if Darwin ever actually used that term, by the way, but there is a concept here of exploitation of finite resources and, descent with modification. So there are changes, there are mutations, there are adaptations to different environments. Going back to the song, like there's one level of adaptation in the ocean, and there's a whole nother game going to be played up on land. And so and I'm sure if we get into space, there's a new way that's going to be played. Or if we go back into the oceans, there's another way to play it again. So I think that
the whole moth to the flame thing is an interesting one too, because moths evolved to use celestial objects to navigate, so lights in the sky, and so that's how they lived their life for, I don't know, a million years. I don't know when moths came about. Well, then eventually humans started using fire to create light at night, and the moths drawn to those flames were killed, which was a negative evolutionary trait for them. But in modern times, the moths are drawn to light bulbs, where they can just flicker around them to their heart's content, and they're no longer in the sky getting eaten by bats. So it's now a positive evolutionary trait based on choices made by a different species that really have no other impact on their life at all.
Yeah, it's like a side effect.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird how the game plays out, isn't it? And it
Mhm.
always reminds me of that South Park episode. I think we talked about this of Thanksgiving and the turkeys.
Yep.
And there was that one turkey was made fun of because he had the crooked neck.
Oh, right.
All the turkeys, shat on this one turkey, and he was the worst, and you're a piece of shit, and you're a loser. And then they get into the, Thanksgiving Day or whatever, they get loaded into the factory, and this blade comes across and just cuts all their heads off.
The one that's crooked neck dodges the blade.
He
It's with his
walks right
crooked
out.
neck.
He
Yeah,
just walks right out. He's
that's
like,
right.
yay. That's what evolution is. So when I say
Yeah.
survival of the fittest, it
Yeah.
doesn't mean that you're the biggest and strongest. It
Yep.
means you're the best at adapting to your
Adapting.
environment. Yeah.
Right. Well, I'm not sure if this next stanza here in the song has to do with adaptation, but some of what we talked about is in there. This will be interesting. So, and this is the part of the song where it does kind of change. I think the way you said it's almost like a complete musical 180, kind of in the way the tempo and the voice inflection. So I'm sure I will not be as great in the delivery as the actual singer of Sleep Token, but here I go. Okay. Well, yeah, I spit blood when I wake up, sink porcelain stain, choking up brain matter and makeup. Just 2 days since the mainframe went down and I'm still messed up. Room feels like a meat freezer. I dangle in it like cold cuts, missed calls, answered phones from people I just don't trust. Mirror talk, fake love, but I'll take a pound of your flesh before you take a piece of my pay stub. White roses, black doves, godmother, rise up. I need you to see me for what I have become. Did okay there, but yeah. So again, like the poetry this guy spits out is just it's great. So a lot of stuff there. I'll just say right away that just 2 days since the mainframe went down, I was like, oh well, it was 2 days. I mean, I was writing these notes yesterday, which was one day ago when the CrowdStrike thing happened with like the largest global IT outage in history or whatever. That was just a kind of fun coincidence. And then, of course, recording it today. That was 2 days ago, just 2 days. And by the way, I don't think it was a mainframe thing, but it just the IT connection there. That's the only note I made in the whole thing yesterday. But as we were talking through this, the I'll take a pound of your flesh before you take a piece of my pay stub. Kind of really speaks to what we were just talking about. This, like, well, I guess this was kind of in the pregame before we were recording too, but like, why would I go to all the trouble to gather all this stuff or, create all this stuff when I could just sit back and wait for you to do it and then come kill you and take it for myself. Anyway, maybe that kind of is
Cain
in
and
there.
Abel. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
the Cain and Abel concept. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I would go here right off the top. So spit blood when I wake up. That it's one of two things, in my opinion. The gastro, so your stomach, or it's your dental. So I think it goes back to the teeth. That's what I'm saying. There's this component, this through line about teeth. And so if you're an animal that lives by going to the grocery store and getting a piece of meat that's in a styrofoam package with saran wrap around it, and you can go home and you could cook it and tenderize it and then take your knife and fork and cut it into tiny little pieces. My point is you don't need your teeth anymore. Humans' teeth are all fucked up now. Like we've evolved to the point of like we go, and I'm speaking from personal experience here. You get your teeth worked on, you have a tooth pulled, you don't need these teeth anymore. My kids, they have orthodontic processes. There's lots of stuff going on with humans and our teeth, and I think it's a symbol that there's a through line of the teeth of animals in this song. And so when I think about someone who spits blood when they wake up, they're probably not taking care of their teeth. And why would you when you don't need to? Because you're eating candy bars and drinking Monster energy drinks or whatever, every day, and you don't care about your teeth or whatever. I mean, it doesn't matter because we can go to the dentist. Once upon a time, it was really important. Your teeth were like your life.
Yeah.
And if you got a tooth infection or your tooth broke, I mean, think about what they talk about man-eating tigers. Is a lot of times their teeth are worn or they broke, and the only thing they can eat is a soft little human, which they don't really want. but that's about the only thing that they can put in their mouth anymore. Or some of these animals, as their teeth wear down, they die. Literally, it's a function of how long your teeth last. So all the rest of it, I mean, we have lots to go on there. Most of it is talking about technology, the downsides of technology. There's not a lot of positivity here. I don't need to hammer on it, but one of the things I do think is very interesting is this pound of flesh as a reference. So pound of flesh, is something Shakespeare talks about. This is a concept of debt repayment. Because if you're broke, you can't pay back your loan, but you could always give a pound of your flesh, and that's a painful thing to do. So, like
that was literal. That was like literally like slice some of your flesh off. Wow.
Yeah, literally. Like in the contract, if you're broke, there's no bankruptcy. I get to cut a pound of your flesh. I get to pick it. I'm going to pick off a pound of your flesh, and so you're most likely going to repay me, is the point.
Yeah.
If you don't want a pound of your flesh to be cut off,
yeah,
I think it's Merchant of Venice. If you don't want a pound of your flesh to be cut off, you will do anything in this world to repay me. And so it's a human level of concept of like a horror. I mean, it's not to eat. It's to cause pain. It's to influence your behavior. It's to motivate you to pay me money. I want the money. I don't want your flesh, but I will cause you untold pains and horrors if you don't pay me. And so this gets into the concept of modernity and these layers of abstraction that we've put on to distance ourselves from the reality of feeling and being an animal and being primal. It's essentially. And then lastly, the part about white roses and black doves. These things are unnatural. I don't even know. Do they have black doves? I don't even know if that's a thing. It probably is somewhere. Someone's probably done enough crossbreeding to create a white rose and a black dove or something like that. So we can create in nature very unnatural things. We understand what is happening. It's not random mutations. Like we can create through inbreeding. We can pull out the recessive traits that we want. We can create dogs, right? Chihuahuas and Great Danes. How in the motherfucker can we create Chihuahuas and Great Danes from the same thing? Well, it's through selective breeding. So the concept of Godmother, rise up, I need you to see me for what I have become. Like that's the point, is this throwback, this concept of a godmother, of a someone who watches over you, someone who's checking on you. They're wise and you're supposed to listen to them. And if they see what you've become, maybe they'll help you. And I think that's the point of the song, is to help you see what you've become, we've become, and rise up from that thing. So it's a very powerful metaphor to cause self-reflection and perhaps motivation towards letting go of a hyper-technical existence.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's one of our faults in humanity is our idea of a godmother or Mother Earth, taking care of us. And that's just not how it works. Like Earth's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine till it's swallowed by the sun. Whether it'll be fine with us on it is up to us.
Yeah.
Because we're already Earth 6.0 as far as life goes. There's already been 5 mass extinctions. And Earth comes back. It just doesn't bring you with it.
Yeah.
If you want to be with it, you have to learn how to survive on it.
Yeah. Together, the future, together, the Oracle and the Matrix.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's true. It's true.
Yeah. By the way, I thought we might squeeze 30 minutes in this discussion, dude. You guys, it's almost been an hour and 20 minutes, and there's still like two sections. So this whole episode will be the Sleep Token episode of this song, which I'm totally cool with. Like we have,
Lots of side carrots,
yeah,
lots
for
of
sure.
tangents. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so this next chunk is also um, quite heavy, I think, and uh, metaphorically, not so much the music heavy, but it goes. I guess it goes to show, does it not, that we've no idea what we've got until we lose it, and no amount of love will keep it around if we don't choose it. And I don't know what's got shit. I fucked that up. And I don't know why it's got its teeth in me, but I'm about to bite back in anger. No amount of self-sought fury will bring back the glory of innocence. So super deep there. Obviously this, Cinderella taught us this in the '80s, right? Don't know what you got till it's gone. Dun dun. You know what I mean, like that. But it's the the quick association for me here is we're talking about sleep and dreams and like, well, oh, that ties in, right? Like in the Inner Cosmos podcast, it's part of the hippocampus, right? I think we talked about last episode. He was drawing the similarity to Alzheimer's, the experience of having Alzheimer's, and literally the brain not being able to hold on to these things. And that kind of spoke to me about like forgetting dreams shortly after we wake up. But if we don't choose it, wow. I mean, that just like really hits hard for me and close and personal about we have to kind of make this conscious effort to reweight our subconscious model and like break out of our strange repeating loops when we recognize these things aren't helpful and there's a better way to do things. We have to choose it. This power of like choice and stuff is like super super heavy for me.
Yeah, this is my favorite part. The idea that you don't know what you've got until you lose it is so human. Like we have this gift of consciousness, but it's also a curse in that I don't know any other animals that know they're going to die. I don't know any
Right.
other animals that can see the consequences of their failures or their successes, into the future like we can. Meaning, I think an animal can feel ecstatic or terrified, but I don't know if they have the anticipation of ecstasy or terror like humans do.
Yeah.
And not only do we have this thing, but we have power over it.
Yeah.
And that's the choice, right? Is the power to put forth effort, action. So love is not enough, meaning love cannot keep something around. The feeling cannot keep something around, but it does motivate you. So that's the choice. If we choose the thing, we can do the work to try anyway. I mean, there's no guarantees, but to try to affect change. That's the power of the human animal. I also like the part about, and it's kind of like a non sequitur where it jumps from the point of choosing something to I don't know why it's got its teeth in me, but I'm about to bite back in anger. That is so right on the money. This fundamentally goes to the concept of who's driving. Okay, I don't think in most cases the conscious mind is driving. I think this goes back to free will. So the way I see the order of operations is you get bit, then you bite back in anger, then you make a story about why you did it. But you didn't really think about why I'm going to bite back in anger. That's what the anger is for. So the anger makes you bite back, not a reason. It's just a feeling. And why are you doing it? Well, because I got bit.
Mm.
So being bit makes you angry. Making you angry makes you bite back. But then the human then chooses why after the fact. Why did I do this thing? And you'll narrate yourself a story about why you bit back. But that's not the truth. It's because you got angry.
Yeah.
Why'd you get angry? Because you felt pain because this thing bit you. So it doesn't matter. Like, I don't know why it's got its teeth in me. That's the whole point. I don't know why it's got its teeth in me. It's not even
Yeah.
it has nothing to do with feeling the pain. And the pain is what causes the anger. And the anger is what chooses for you to bite back. So it's a complicated dance. And this is where we're in this point of we're human animals. So we have this gift of seeing our own future, our own mortality, and seeing that we can build things. We can learn from other people's mistakes, history. We can create art, all these things we can do with our strengths. And yet we will still bite back in anger
Yeah.
without knowing why it's got its teeth in us. And that's just inexplicable, but it's true.
Right. Right. Very gnarly. Did I
And then
share Steve? Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say one last little part here. This is very densely packed. But the concept, no amount of self-sought fury will bring back the glory of innocence. So once you've been bitten, you have this impression, this experience, this condition. It's a conditioning, okay? Once you've been bitten, you've now been conditioned to fear the thing that bit you. And you can't get that innocence back. It's at the subconscious level. It's a corollary thing. This thing equals pain. This thing equals pleasure. So your innocence comes from not being imprinted with a conditioning on pain and pleasure. And you can't ever get it back. So once you've been, now you can have your conditioning balanced. Let's just say you're scared of clowns. A clown terrified you at, 8th grade birthday party or whatever. And now you're terrified of clowns. Well, there's, cognitive behavioral therapy. Maybe they will decondition you by reconditioning you that clowns are not going to attack you. Like, there's one bad experience with the clown. You're terrified of the clown, but we'll slowly show you a picture of a clown. Then you'll watch a movie about a clown. Then you'll go look at a clown through a window. Then you'll walk into the building and see a clown. Then you'll shake the clown's hand, whatever it is. So you can recondition, but you can never go back to before you were terrified of clowns.
Mm. Yeah. The change happened.
It did at the point of the thing that's deciding, which is the subconscious animal part of you, this thing that's the brain stem. This is the thing that is acting quickly. This is the thing that is making so much of your life that you've routinely done, like driving. You don't have to think. Playing a guitar, you don't have to think. We talk about this all the time. Like, it's getting past the point of having to actively try to think about a thing. And it's in the cerebellum now, and it just works for you because you're an expert at driving, and you don't have to think about where your foot goes. Is it on the gas or the brake? You don't even think about it. You don't think about turning your signal on. You don't think about, checking your mirror before you shift lanes. It just happens. And you're talking to your friend in the passenger seat, you're eating a Big Mac, and the radio's on, and all this chaotic stuff is happening. You're going 75 miles an hour down the highway, 6 inches from a semi truck, and you're casual.
Everything's fine. Yeah.
Everything's fine. So that thing is what we need. All these things, by the way, are both strengths and weaknesses, right? This is the whole point, is relying on the fact of being conditioned allows us to do very impressive things. But it's also a curse in that once we become conditioned, we're now beholden to that conditioning. It's Pavlovian. Like, you don't get a choice to salivate. I ring this bell. Guess what's happening? It has nothing to do with your conscious thoughts. Zero to do with your conscious thought. I ring the bell. You start salivating. Fuck you. It's just the way it is.
Fuck you. Yeah. Did I just back to your point about, the unique quality of the human experience of knowing our mortality? Did I share with you guys what Steve-O said about that? I know I mentioned his memoir, his second one, it's so good, but he said something like, this contradiction, this sort of paradox that, we all have this one basic instinctual drive to survive, and the one guarantee is that we won't. It's very gnarly.
Quite a terrible predicament.
Almost a cruel joke even, yeah.
True.
So wrapping up the song here, this last part, and again, we're just going through like the lyrics. Again, the pre-chorus and the chorus come in and out. The song's great, despite how amazing my mouth riffing is that I think I'm doing here. Like, it is really good. I do highly recommend check out the song if you haven't
Hey,
heard it before.
I wrote a bass line to it. Works for me.
Yeah, nice. Nice. So this last piece, it's just very quick. When we were made, it was no accident. We were tangled up like branches in a flood. And then it does another chorus, and the end riff does hit heavy. Comes across live. I can say that from my own experience. Definitely throws down. It's really good shit. But so these.
Thank you so much, by the way, you and Jay, for sharing that video. I can't.
Yeah,
tell you.
you're welcome.
I got the feel so hard when you showed me. It was Red Rock.
Yeah.
Right? You guys
Yeah,
went to?
yep. Just like a couple months ago. Yeah. Great experience. But yeah. So these lyrics, the flood thing kind of seemed for sure. Like now here, I don't think I was thinking in terms of like dream state or anything. It seemed very biblical. But it's cool. When we were made, it was no accident. We were tangled up like branches in a flood. Well, it's interesting now that I say that again out loud like that. So not, he's no accident is what he's saying. Like the branches weren't just happenstance coincidentally tangled up like they were supposed to be
Well, think about it.
tangled up.
If you were to see branches in a flood untangled, wouldn't that be weird?
Yeah,
So
I guess. Yeah, you'd think like, well, I guess there was one branch that made its way here aside from like yeah, but like
no, like
how many
imagine all
trees
the
have just like one single branch? Yeah,
well, not just
that's a
one
good point.
branch. Imagine a bunch of branches after a flood that you see that they're neatly stacked in a row.
Oh yeah, okay, so you're saying yeah.
Or
That
not
would be
even
weird.
not even
Yeah.
neatly stacked, but no two branches touching.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you, Tucker.
Just a
Yeah.
whole field, and none
They're
of
all
them are
lined.
touching.
They're
Yeah.
all spaced out, and it's not natural.
Yeah.
It's unnatural, and it's to the point of we don't have to feel guilty about being an animal.
Mm.
Okay, we were created as an adaptation to our environment. We have this level of competition, and I think we talked about before about like termites and stuff. I mean, they have guards along the trail of, or army ants or termites, to the mound or whatever. I mean, the creatures evolve violence as a mechanism of adaptation. So we are violent creatures. We have weaknesses as well. Like we're susceptible to social media. And the ability to be played on, meaning our dopamine system of rewards, is played upon by algorithms. I mean, the algorithm's unnatural, but our feeling towards constant drips of dopamine is not. Go to a casino. You think there's flashing lights and intermittent reward systems for no reason? No.
Mm.
They pump oxygen in there and they take away the clocks and they give you intermittent reward systems for a very important reason. It's not just reward. Like to really addict somebody, it's the anticipation of reward. The way we are today, we've talked about the benefits and the costs of knowing you're going to die. I mean, part of it is heroism. Like using the fact that I know I'm going to die, so I'm not fearful. Like I can overcome. I will die someday. Like I don't think anybody would rush into a burning building if we were all immortal. It's the fact that I got to go someday allows me to be courageous. I would give my life for my friends and family if there was nobody else, and that was going to make or break the moment.
Yeah.
So having this understanding, back to the understanding of where we're at, allows us to make a choice. By the way, I'm gonna reference another song, which is Chokehold.
Oh yeah.
Chokehold
Also Sleep Token.
Yeah, brother. Yeah. So it starts with this line. I don't know if you've listen to the whole song deeply. It's an interesting song. It's not as impactful as Take Me Back to Eden, but it starts with this same exact concept. I mean, I think the exact first two lines are these two lines.
I think you're right. Yeah, it was no accident. I
Yeah.
think you're right. Yeah, we were tangled, maybe. Yeah.
So this is a very powerful concept in the sleep token mythology, I believe, that it's not an accident. Like, but hold on now. Like, there's also references to gods, but I don't think I think it's a metaphorical connection. I don't think, like, the gods grow tired.
Yeah.
So I don't think we're talking about. I mean, we're also talking sleep gods, and going into a realm of, like, it's a virtual realm of inside your head when you're asleep. I mean, it's very, very layered, but the concept of it's not an accident, I think, is what needs to be taken up here, and that we will travel beyond the path of reason. By the way, the scream verse, the last one where he just rushes it,
right?
Like, that's
Visceral,
kind of like,
dude.
Yeah, visceral. Thank you, John. Like, you gotta know we've got to go past reason. Like, that's not sufficient. That's not where we're at. That's kind of the artifice of humanity and the technology, all this stuff. You don't feel a certain way, and that's why you scream. Like, the primal scream is there for a reason. It makes you feel a certain kind of way. It's like listening to wolves howl or something. It's like there's something different now. You can't just write it down on a page, hand it to somebody, and feel the same way. That's why he has to crush that lyric.
Yeah.
To get you past this point of just abstraction, the reasonable, rational, logical abstraction of, just talking about something in a classroom. Totally different. I think it was Twain who said, you could read all you want about a cat, you won't know nothing until you hold it by the tail.
Oh, yeah.
So grabbing the cat by the tail is the scream. That's like that's the reality of the thing. And so it's all this tension and a choice.
Well said.
I agree.
So I'm totally game, like, throughout the future episodes, to every so often do this kind of thing where it seems like we probably would be able to easily spend 90 minutes just talking about a song. I realized, like, something I want to share, and I could have prefaced this discussion with this, but there's this show on Netflix you told me about, Tucker, called Song Exploder, and it's based on a podcast that this dude did that I haven't actually looked into much, but his podcast was like song dissection, but not just lyrics, like all the music, and he just sit down with, like, the songwriter and interview them, and tell me about this riff or this drum pattern, or, like, really, really cool concept. And the episode you told me about, Tucker, was with Trent Reznor, and the song was Nine Inch Nails. It was
Hurt.
Yeah, it was Hurt.
Wow.
And it's an incredible episode, and one of my just favorite things about it was at the point, the moment when the host, he asks Trent Reznor about the lyrics. What do the lyrics mean? And I just loved Trent Reznor's response so much. It just was, like, so just powerful. He said something to the effect of, like, I generally try to avoid answering that question. He's like, when I was a kid, I remember being so fascinated by songs. He may have mentioned, like, Led Zeppelin, but maybe that's just Mandela affected my brain. But he was just giving the idea that he'd get me so, like, enamored with these songs, and the lyrical meaning would just be so, like, personal and profound to him. And then he would, like, read an interview like in a magazine, and the artist, the band, whatever, would say, yeah, the song means this, and it'd be totally different. And for him, it was, like, not nearly as good as his own interpretation. So he's like, I really kind of try to shy away from saying what my interpretation is, because I think it's so much cooler for people to have their own, was basically the idea. And I was just like, dude, this guy, fucking love Trent Reznor, man.
Totally. By
you
the
know.
way, that Johnny Cash cover of that
Oh
song,
yeah, yeah.
oof, oof. As he's
It's not
looking at
often that I find a cover that is better than the original, and his cover of that song is
well,
it's just better.
he's literally dying, I think, right? I mean, he was
Yeah,
not far from death, I want to say.
Yeah, it
yeah.
was towards the end there. It's funny because my experience when that came out, I was doing the Metal Speak podcast with our friend Jared, and we talked about that. And my reaction was not necessarily that it was better. I remember some people saying, even to the point where like that song doesn't belong to Trent Reznor anymore. Like Johnny Cash, like kind of took ownership of that song. And I remember just thinking like, oh, that's interesting. I don't really like have that experience. You know, I mean, I've listened to Hurt like fucking thousands and thousands of times, I'm
Oh,
sure,
sure,
you
yeah.
know, and so, you know, this other version, like I did think it was great. But I appreciated what Jared said about it. He's like, well, you know, when Trent Reznor wrote that song, he was, you know, in his kind of early 20s, but it's so deep and powerful and like heavy and kind of tragically sad and everything. And it was like, I think he was saying, I think that's what's resonating with people. It's like to hear Johnny Cash sing it, who, you know, maybe can relate from a lifetime of experiences versus a like, you know, early 20-year-old or whatever. And I was like, oh, thank you. I had not
Yeah.
thought of it from that angle. Like, and it's still, I don't know if I'd say for me that I think it's better or that it's doesn't belong to Trent Reznor. I mean, I appreciate like those things might resonate with people in a way, and I don't have to agree on that. It's beautiful. Like we could disagree, but I did appreciate hearing that angle about wow, yeah, the actual like life experience, you know, just tying in with the lyrics, you know what I mean, and like
Yeah.
his performance too. It's just him and a guitar. You know, it's pretty
I, I
spectacular.
have I have honestly met numerous people who have heard both songs and believed that Nine Inch Nails covered Johnny
No kidding.
Cash's.
No kidding.
There should be a word for that. That's an interesting phenomenon.
Reverse cover or something.
Well, just no, like it's just like such a thing. I think you're right when you assign ownership to something just based off your subjective perception of
Oh, I get you. Yeah.
like, because it goes back to not wanting to say what it's about, which is next level genius, by the way.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
because that's like it doesn't break the metaphor, but it's trying to measure it. And I think we talked about like trying to measure something, weigh it, you know, get its temperature and all. Like that does nothing.
Initiate the observer effect, if you will. You know.
Yeah, yeah, lock it in, and this is the way it is. No. The beauty of the metaphor is I'm lying to you.
Oh
And
yeah.
I am lying to you by saying this is that.
Yeah.
And the only reason why it's a metaphor is because you know I'm lying to you.
Yeah.
But when I lie to you and say this is that, it's inherent in the metaphor is my point. Once you describe the metaphor, you should have said that is that. That is that. It is. A is A. 100%
Yeah.
of the time. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking
Yeah.
about A is A. I'm saying A is B.
Yeah.
Which
Right.
that's
Yeah.
where the magic happens.
That's a great teaser for the next episode. I don't think I have to ask, but like we'll do part 3 of Sleep. Yes.
I
Yeah.
think we should get to those. The rest of the
Yes.
show notes you've got are fabulous, and there's a lot of material in there that
Yeah. There's
is valuable.
the quote from Picasso speaks to what you said about like the lie
Yeah,
and the metaphor.
yeah.
So we'll
Teaser
pick
with
up
that.
there.
Yeah,
Do you want me
teaser
to
with
read
that,
the
though.
maybe I'll
Please.
just read the quote. But yeah, but I don't want to, you know, cuz yeah, like we definitely could talk another 90 minutes. But so
No,
for
I
a
think we're
teaser,
done.
so
Yeah,
yeah.
tease us out if you want to outro on that
Yeah.
quote. I think that's
Maybe
the
I will. Yeah,
takeaway.
actually, I think I will because I did pick a quote from Walt Whitman, but I think I'll save that for the next one. So, but yeah, so in the next episode, we'll go through these. There's a Lord Byron poem that was mentioned in the Inner Cosmos podcast that's really cool. This Picasso quote. Also, I think we could spend some time just like asking each other questions about like our own experiences with dreams and sleep habits, lucid dreaming. And so I you know, look forward to that in the next one. But yeah, I will close with the Picasso quote because it is a great one, and it you know, I look forward to the discussion on that next week. But yeah, until then, thank you so much for listening. Thank you guys, as always. If you want to share any feedback with us, we would love to hear from you. Sendingpoets@gmail.com. And so we'll leave here with Picasso's wisdom here. We all know that art is not truth. Art is a lie that makes us realize truth, at least the truth that is given to us to understand. The artist must know the manner whereby to convince others of the truthfulness of his lies.